Hey, it's JC14241 once again with another album review, and today we're going to be talking about the new Breaking Benjamin album that came out on April 13th, 2018, which is Ember. A while back I did a review of their 2006 album Phobia as a comparison to this one just because Phobia is my favorite Breaking Benjamin album. I've got to say, Phobia is still my favorite Breaking Benjamin album. I had no expectations for this to possibly top that. And not only that, but there's a new 3 Days Grace album that I did a review of, and I was quite sure whenever that came out, and even whenever the first singles started coming around, that Breaking Benjamin would still impress me just a bit more. But overall, I'm not impressed with this album, but we're still going to take the time to talk about my favorite parts of it and where I think they can improve. The first couple of tracks on this album are Lyra and Feed the Wolf. Lyra, just being an intro track, is only about 30 seconds long, and it does get the album in motion, though, whenever it transitions into Feed the Wolf. It starts out with this soft piano melody, and then this guitar chord is slowly fading in and rising, getting louder. Whenever Feed the Wolf finally begins, it's this hard-hitting guitar riff. It's really getting the song in motion with that aggression. The song's meaning, though, is being scared of yourself and who you are at your worst, and then you get to the chorus and it's kind of like accepting that and knowing yourself well. So this is an interesting song from Breaking Benjamin just because we really haven't had one like this from them. At least we don't get one like this very often. When we get these all the time with songs like Monster by Skillet or And Alive Become by 3 Days Grace. But Breaking Benjamin's take on this was the second single. It came out after Red Cold River, and it has to be my second favorite song on the album. Of course, I mean, even then, there aren't any songs in this album that I would actually consider a 10 out of 10 rating from my perspective. This I kind of give like a 9 just because the guitar riffs throughout this song are rather basic, and even the percussion isn't that amazing for me personally. You get to the bridge and it feels like it's been done before. It's nothing that stands out. There could have been more done with it. The one thing that really does save the bridge and make it memorable is because it has this mad scientist dialogue, because Feed the Wolf, experiments, evilness, whatever. And another thing that makes the song memorable is because of the screamed vocals in the background, which is something that we do get throughout this album quite a bit, is just scream vocals, which I really do want to congratulate Benjamin Burnley on for being able to scream again and really push himself to do that, because I think for the past couple of albums he hasn't been able to do it as much just because of his health. The third song and the lead single to this album was Red Cold River. This was also the theme song to my NASCAR 08 Let's Play that I started out 2018 with. Though many of my audience members on this channel have probably already seen that intro many times, if you haven't, you can always just go clicking on one of the NASCAR 08 videos yourself. I think the best way for me to start out my review of this track in particular is just to take the time and acknowledge the fact that the lyrical content makes no sense whatsoever out of context. It's just basically screaming run 3 times and then screaming Red Cold River. It just sounds like corny nonsense at first, but once you listen to all the other lyrics in the song, it becomes easy to connect the dots. Because this song is about, what it's like to be depressed, and then suddenly you just can't feel any of the emotions that you used to feel anymore. It's kind of like Numb by Linkin Park, but it makes this analogy about a bloodstream and, a red, cold river. It's something that takes a lot of hinting and a lot of thinking just to get across. And overall, I think they could have come up with something better for that analogy, even though all their songs are about being depressed for the most part. But, I mean, just like all Breaking Benjamin songs, and this was a good choice for a lead single because it's a really great mixture of the melodicness and the aggression that we always get from Breaking Benjamin here. Track 4 is Tourniquet. I already have a song called Tourniquet. It's by Evanescence. I don't know why I needed to mention that, but it's like that's the one reason why I'm not putting the song on my phone, so I don't have to deal with confusion constantly. But yeah, this is another song about surviving life in a hellhole, I guess, which is something that we get a lot from Breaking Benjamin, but at this point I'm not going to go criticizing him for it. I'm just going to go thinking about how the song is as a whole. This is a song that uses some recycled vocal melodies. I think the lyrics are a little fresh in comparison, but the vocal melodies, it just kind of wears me out. Whenever you get to the chorus, though, that's what stands out to me the most, because interestingly enough, it kind of centers around the G natural. So if you're considering singing along to this song while surrounded by other people, don't do that. because then you'll become a public nuisance. Listening to the song itself is pretty darn enjoyable. I like that chorus, but it's very centered on that one tone. I was like writing my notes and I was like, is that a G natural? I was trying to think of the scale in my head because I haven't played trombone in a while, so I just looked up G natural on YouTube, and surely enough, that is actually the tone that you get throughout the chorus in the song. It's just interesting. That's not something I was expecting at all while listening to this album. But I think the thing that stands out to me the most with this song would be the continuous drum rhythm that goes on throughout the verses. It's something that, keeps me going. And then you have the long drawn out guitar chords, which are pretty nice as well. Psycho is the 5th track on this album and was another one of the singles that was released before the album came out. We're going to actually take the time to complain about how many singles we got on this album, like every other person reviewing it, once we get to the 5th single, whenever that comes up in this review. But this song reminds me of something from We Are Not Alone as it starts off, just because of that fresh guitar riff that has this attitude that we don't get very often from Breaking Benjamin. I'm always clinging to it because it's different and it's not just extremely positive. But as you get to the melodic chorus, it's a more uplifting feeling, and it actually reminds me of something from Phobia, such as maybe Evil Angel or Until the End. Now, the drums in the song are really powerful, and I really enjoy that experience that they give off. The lyrics are okay, I suppose, but I think this is probably the title track of the album, even though it doesn't have the same name, because it has this line in the chorus that says, "In the cold eternal light, I am the ember fading," which I guess is supposed to portray being free-spirited and not being held back. Track 6 is The Dark of You featuring Derek Huff, which is probably the most appropriate time to have a rock ballad on this album, just because we're right around the halfway point, the breaking point of this Breaking Benjamin album. I don't know why I needed to throw such a stupid pun in there, but I just did. Anyhow, this guest appearance that we have by Derek Huff is not one that I consider very significant to the overall result of the song, just because he has a very similar singing style to Benjamin Burnley. Like, if he wasn't here, there wouldn't be that much of a change at all. I mean, if you didn't know that it was Derek Huff, you would just assume that it's another recording of Benjamin Burnley at a different tone. But it's a good duet. I feel like it could have been better if we had a different vocalist with just a very, very diverse style in comparison to Benjamin Burnley. But it's nothing that I can really complain about, honestly. Now, a lot of people love this song, and I think it's because of the instrumentation, that soft piano, and then you get to the chorus finally with this guitar chord, and it really does capture a lot of great musicality with the melody portraying such an interesting emotion about feeling that life is just pointless and no reason for us to be here if we're not going to go leaving behind anything nice in the world. Have mercy on us all if that's in mind. The lyrical effort is not something that I would consider very strong. It's something that other people would think it just because of how it's being sung, obviously. But whenever I'm hearing the word fade from Breaking Benjamin for like the millionth time, I guess it's just something that I can't dig very much anymore. One last thing that I really want to mention before I'm done talking about this song is that there is this melody throughout the song that reminds me very much of the intro of the 2009 Linkin Park album, A Thousand Suns, and that song was The Requiem. It was kind of also a song and an intro at the same time, but you should listen to it and take the time to think about the same emotions that this song has and the similarities of those two melodies.
Turn to ash, defeated after all. Fade away to the wicked world we left, and I become the dark of you. Say a prayer for the wounded heart.
Track 7 is titled Down. You could probably tell just looking at that title it has something to do with being down in dumps and depressed, which is what we always get with Breaking Benjamin. It's getting kind of old with me personally, but that's rather subjective, isn't it? Whenever you start listening to the song, there are these sound effects in there that kind of sound like they're from Transformers, though I highly doubt that Michael Bay played any part in the making of this song right here. Whenever it gets going with that opening guitar riff, it's really packed in and aggressive, and at first I'm like, oh, this could possibly be a really freaking amazing song, and I'm like, I just know that it's going to be about escaping depression. And it is. It's about escaping depression. But, I mean, I mean, it's one of the better songs that is about that emotion. It has this really rising and powerful feeling whenever you get to the chorus, and you get to the end of that chorus, and there are these really powerful screamed vocals in there that I really like. It might seem try-hard, but I think they're pretty darn good at the same time. But then there's the lyrical effort in here, which is try not hard, if you ask me. Torn in Two was the 8th track on this album, and this is a song that I think a lot of other people, including me, were expecting to be released as a single at some point, because it was used promotional for like a NHL commercial, maybe a hockey commercial of some sorts. At least I think that's what it was. But no, it never came around. It might be a single after the release of the album now, for all we know. But all in all, this is a pretty great song. It's one of my favorites on the album, though there are some spaces in it that I think needed to be filled. Like the interlude isn't complex enough, and the meaning of the song isn't that diverse among Breaking Benjamin's songs. This one's kind of about, feeling dead inside, but also thinking that you can still keep yourself alive, and it's kind of this internal conflict of sorts, feeling torn apart and torn in half, whatever. I really like the intro this song has. It's a really powerful guitar riff. It's probably the most memorable in the album, and my favorite to hear on this album. It's like my favorite song to start, to be honest. And then the outro is pretty nice as well.
I am torn in two. Hold on, we're barely alive. I am fading through.
The 9th track on this album has to be my favorite song on this album in its entirety, and that is Blood. This was the 3rd single that was released after Red Cold River and Feed the Wolf, I believe. And I think the main reason why I love this song so much is just because it stands strong in its expression of acceptance of who you really are deep down inside. And at the same time, I'm probably just a sucker for, raw emotion being expressed with their aggressive guitar parts. And then you get to the chorus and it has these scream singing vocals about how it's in my blood already, or other lyrics such as all it ever was is all it ever is. And I mean, the lyrical effort here is a lot less melodramatic than usual, which is something that I can really find myself getting attached to at this point. It just seems more creative that way. The 5th single from this album was track 10, Save Yourself. I said I was going to complain about this earlier, and here we are. An album with only 10 songs on it had 5 singles. That is half the album spoiled way before release. If you're going to spoil an album, you might as well just release the whole thing at once really early, but otherwise the fans, they find the urges to go listening to these new songs because they're there and they don't want to just not listen to them. So I can understand how frustrating it is. I mean, it was frustrating for me personally, but I should have taken advantage of it so that I could get half of my album review notes out of the way before the release. And then only like, hey, I only have 5 more songs to go writing about, and then the review will be ready to do. But I didn't. But anyhow, this is actually my least favorite song on the entire album. I don't exactly hate it by any means. It's just that I really don't dig that guitar riff that the song is based on very much. It's something subjective that I'm just not that into it. And even the song meaning is nothing, something I can go making a big deal about, because it's about, not wanting to have anything to do with life anymore and kind of giving up on it and telling someone else that you're going to be splitting up with them and they should just figure out that shit on their own. And the only thing that I can really take away from the song that I really like is that during the verses we have some drums filling those spaces in there, and I really like how it keeps the rhythm going. It's like the silver lining of the song overall.
Fire fills our eyes. When the hate becomes the high, pain is chosen. When the devil comes alive.
Track 11 is Close Your Eyes, and this is the final song on the album. And then after that, we go into Vega, which is the outro to the album. We'll be talking about these two in the final clip right here. But this song really does contrast to Save Yourself just because it starts out with this really fucking amazing guitar riff that I can really jam out to. And then it transitions into this brighter atmosphere of, the lyrics and the overall feeling that you get to it. but at the same time, it's something that we probably could have gotten from Dear Agony, or maybe even We Are Not Alone in some cases, but the way it constantly changes into something more uplifting. It's the same old recycled, overly melodramatic lyrics, such as fading away and breaking free of darkness, and I'm gonna ruin my Kamikaze Games merchandise t-shirt by trying to connect with this song. But yeah, it's not that memorable for me personally. But at the same time, its musicality is quite decent. It just sounds like any other Breaking Benjamin song from any album. I mean, I feel like this could have been on any of the past 3 albums that they did. And then you get to the outro, which is Vega. Vega is basically just some artificial bass beats, which I find weird because I wasn't expecting that to come to the end of this Breaking Benjamin album. But Lyra was, much more impressive because of how it had the soft piano, and then it had the guitar coming in, and it rose, and then it connected into Feed the Wolf. But this one, it just fades out, and it's just a bunch of beats. So it's nothing that I feel like should have been there. If anything, it should have just been connected and made one track with Close Your Eyes. The 3 biggest albums in rock music being released this year are obviously Five Finger Death Punch in May, Breaking Benjamin right here in April, and then in March we had 3 Days Grace. I've got to say that we didn't have a really close rivalry and battle between 3 Days Grace and Breaking Benjamin. It's kind of a tough decision. But overall, I was more impressed by 3 Days Grace with what they accomplished on their new album. I was expecting less from them, but in the end, I like this album more than the new 3 Days Grace album, but I'm less impressed by it. I actually got what I kind of expected. My final score for this new Breaking Benjamin album, Ember, is a 75%. And yeah, I mean, that's like 20% drop since Phobia. So, I mean, I feel like that's kind of like the same thing we got around with Dark Before Dawn, which I probably would have given like a 70% or maybe less than that, which was the same as that 3 Days Grace album. I want to talk about a few comparisons to 3 Days Grace's new album in terms of my satisfaction. Is that 3 Days Grace album, though I did not enjoy it as much as this one, my 2 favorite songs from that album were The Abyss and Villain I'm Not. And I actually like those 2 songs more than this entire album, or more than any of the other songs on this album. It's just, this album I feel is more consistent and I like it more as a whole. But at the same time, I feel like the biggest drops and the reason why the score is so much lower in comparison to Phobia is because so much of it seems recycled and already done, such as the lyrical content, the themes, the guitar riffs, the rhythms, and the melodies, just all of that stuff. I mean, they should have released this album on April 20th instead of April 13th because April 20th is closer to Earth Day. And, on Earth Day, you recycle shit. That is such a stupid freaking roast, but whatever. I want to thank Breaking Benjamin for putting together some art that I can go looking into, and I liked quite a few songs in here, and they still did a pretty good job. And I mean, it's not bad. It's something that I do enjoy listening to, and I might be listening to it on my way to Talladega, Alabama, really soon whenever I go attending a NASCAR race. A freaking 11-hour ass drive. 11-hour ass drive. I don't even know what the hell I just said, but yeah, if you want to listen to this album yourself, you can click the link in the description below, or you can watch some other album reviews from Rocking with Robbie, Justin French, and ARTV, and I think I might be able to find some other people that did reviews of this album that you can check out, to do some comparisons of opinions, because, yeah, I really do like talking about music and how I feel about it, but that's about all I can say about the new Breaking Benjamin album, Ember. Once again, thank Breaking Benjamin for the efforts. See you next time. That's that, and album review over.